It's a quiet December afternoon. Beneath a white sheet of clouds, the town resounds with the soft hum of winter. An evergreen wreath nods against the breeze. Then the first snowflakes begin to drop from the sky, at first gently, then in giant clumps like cotton. By the time the sky is dimmed, every surface in sight is covered in a mantle of white. You curl up by the hearth, a mug of hot cocoa pressed between your knees. The fire crackles and pops. Then from above you hear a loud thump. You unhook your coat from the door, toss it over your shoulders, and head out into the night. The air is thick with wood smoke and snow. Up from the snow-laden gabled rooftops, you hear the metallic jingle of bells, which beckons you to look up. There you lay eyes on a majestic creature with a pale, fluffy goatee and antlers so long they curl around like crescent moons. And beside him is a man wrapped in white furs. His back is turned from you, but as he feels your gaze, he turns around. You let out a gasp. Could it really be? Most of us are familiar with the legend of Santa Claus. He flies in a sleigh drawn by 12 reindeer on Christmas Eve, bringing gifts to all good children. In every house, he comes down the chimney, and he leaves these gifts under the Christmas tree. He wears a red robe trimmed with white fur, and has a long white beard. Also, he loves milk and cookies if they're left out for him. Elves help him prepare the presents up at the North Pole, and children can hear him if they just listen for the jingling of his bells. At the mantle, people have left stockings to be filled with chocolates and other goodies. On the surface, it seems like such a sweet Christian legend. Santa himself looks not too different from how many Christians imagine God, with a long white beard in the sky. But by the end of this video, you will understand why the legend of Santa Claus is actually derived from highly pagan legends all across Northern Europe, from Iceland to Germany to Finland to Siberia. The truth is, the legend of Santa Claus is about much more than just gift-giving and generosity. It's about witches and hell and magic mushrooms, and scaring the wits out of naughty children. Let me take you on a journey across time and space. On December 24th and 25th, Christians celebrate the birth of their prophet Jesus Christ. But the rites associated with Christmas are much, much older than 0 AD. The winter solstice, which usually falls on December 21st to 22nd, was celebrated in many similar ways to how Christmas is celebrated today. It was a festival to celebrate the longest night of the year, a day to appease the spirits that threatened to take people to the other side of the veil through the very harsh elements of winter. For example, in Germanic and Norse lands, the winter solstice was known as a festival called Yule. Traditions sometimes included burning a whole tree for 12 days in the fireplace, remember the number 12, to encourage the sun to start making its way back to the earth. Then later it started to be adorning what's called a Yule log, which is just a log, a piece of a tree, with evergreens, orange slices, candles, meditating on this new beginning, throwing it into the fire to burn, and then scattering its ashes to plant the seeds of your next intentions. And then of course, people started to also make Yule log cakes all across Europe, which look very much like how actual Yule logs looked. Another tradition that was common for Yule was hanging mistletoe for good luck. The Vikings believed that mistletoe, when combined with the mother goddess's tears, resurrected her son, the god of sunlight. They also believed that mistletoe could heal ailments and ward off evil spirits. And even in my home country of Romania, mistletoe is said to bring prosperity in the new year and to keep at bay strigoi, again, evil spirits. And on the eve of the winter solstice, the Vikings would also get their kids to leave their shoes out by the hearth, filled to the brim with sugar and hay for the god Odin's eight-legged horse. Meanwhile, further south in the Mediterranean region, the winter solstice overlapped with Saturnalia, a festival dedicated to the Roman god Saturn. He was the god of time, dissolution, and abundance. Saturnalia festivities included things like gift-giving, decorating evergreens, drinking, eating, lighting lots of candles to keep out the dark, playing games and tournaments, singing, and storytelling. So as you can see, Christmas has far more ancient roots than most people realize. These ideas of filling the home with evergreens and with Christmas trees, and giving gifts and merrymaking, originate from far deeper traditions. Another day in which these themes of gift-giving and charity are really prevalent is St. Nicholas Day, which takes place on December 6th. St. Nicholas was said to be a Greek man who became known for his acts of generosity. There was a poor man in his village who had 3 daughters but no money for dowries for any of them. Until one night, this man Nicholas appeared at the daughter's window and tossed in a bag of gold. And he did this 3 nights in the row until all 3 daughters had enough money for a dowry. And then it said it became tradition for children to place their shoes shoes by the window on St. Nicholas Eve so that he could put things like oranges and chocolates there for them in the morning. Now, as I just explained, the tradition of leaving out shoes and filling them with goodies was actually much older than Christianity. But if you say St. Nicholas very, very fast over and over again, what does it sound like to you? St. Nicholas, St. Nicholas, St. Nicholas, St. Nicholas. Santa Claus? Another day in December that is said to have pagan roots is St. Lucia Day, which falls on December 13, a week after St. Nicholas Day. And just like I asked you to remember the number 12, also remember the number 13. Legend has it that Lucia was a Sicilian woman who was persecuted and beheaded for being Christian. So in the olden days, St. Nicholas brought presents for boys a week earlier, and then on St. Lucia Day, she brought gifts for the girls. On St. Lucia Day, the youngest girl in the family dresses like St. Lucia to celebrate her martyrdom, which is dressed in a dress of white. And her holiday is called the Festival of Lights. She's often wearing a crown of candles atop her head. Now, it might surprise you that this also has pagan origins. St. Lucia's Day is a celebration of light that takes place during the darkest time of the year. In ancient pagan winter solstice rituals, things like bonfires and lighting candles were very popular to ward off evil on those dark nights. It's also believed that St. Lucia might be a Christianized version of the Roman goddess of light, Lucina, and that on this day, things like divination, observation of omens, and predicting the weather for next year's crops was pretty common. But what about those more frightening pagan legends that I warned you about at the beginning of this video? Because so far we haven't gotten into anything that's a little scary. Well, from Iceland, we have the legend of Gryla, the Christmas witch. They say the Gryla is a giantess with wrinkles so deep that they look like worn leather. She lives in the mountains in a cave with her husband Lepaludi, and together they have 13 boys called the Yule Lads. And each of the 13 nights before Yule, the Yule Lads come to play pranks on the town. So if you leave your shoes on the windowsill, they will leave you small gifts in your shoes, or rotten potatoes, depending on whether you're naughty or nice. They also live with a Yule cat, a vicious, bloodthirsty white cat that lurks the snowy countryside and eats any children who haven't been gifted new clothes by Christmas Eve. Not gonna lie, I would probably still pet the cat. The Gryla legend is first mentioned in the 17th century, but it has a lot of pagan elements, starting off with the 13 Yule Lads and the 13 days leading up to Christmas. 13 is the number of full moons in a year. Typically, it's the number of witches in a coven. 12 witches plus either the coven leader or sometimes the 13th one is said to be the horned god. In pagan times, 13 was a lucky number, not an unlucky one. For example, for the Mayans, heaven had 13 layers above the earth, while the underworld had 9 layers. The Aztecs had calendars split into 20 sections, and each of those sections was 13 days long. And it was said that days with 13 in them were lucky numbers. And then also from the book Thracian Magic, I learned that the 12 days before Christmas, in lands that used to be Thracian, the Balkan region, there was a practice called guarding the sourdough to assure the goddess's blessings in the 12 days leading up to Christmas. So the numbers 12 and the numbers 13 are highly associated with Christmas, which is why even in Christianity you might hear the 12 days of Christmas. But these numbers have highly witchy pagan roots. Meanwhile, moving into mainland Europe, Germany more specifically, there was the legend of Krampus, the goat man. Krampus was said to accompany St. Nicholas on the night that he came to visit the children. And you can hear whispers of Krampus from all along the Alps. He's said to have black fur, horns, and bloodthirsty fangs. And he hits children with birch rods when they misbehave. Further northwest, moving into Finland, we get the legend of the Joulupukki. He's also a goat man, and he comes to town on Christmas Eve wearing a red robe with blue stitched near its fur lining. He's said to travel in a sleigh pulled by reindeer, and when he's not in his sleigh, he uses a walking stick. This legend is believed to have originated from Norse mythology, from the 2 goats that led Thor's chariot through the sky. Some believe that the Joulupukki is the original form of Santa Claus and that its more frightening presentation was watered down during the 20th century. Then in the Alpine region, we have the legend of Frau Perchta, the belly-slitter. She comes in 2 forms. One is a beautiful maiden dressed in a dress as white as snow, or another one is a haggard old woman with a beak of a nose. And she comes on, you guess it, the 12th night to slit open your belly and fill you with straw and rocks if you haven't spun all your flax yet. But if your home is tidy and you finished all your spinning, she rewards you with silver coins. So you guys, make sure you've spun all your flax. And also leave out some porridge for her because she likes porridge offerings. So here again, we see the number 12. We see the idea of food offerings, which pagans used to appease the spirits with sacrifices in olden days as a way of feeling like they had some control over the harsh elements. Possibly some links to fairy legends here because fairies tend to be appeased by food offerings, particularly anything sweet. And we see in Frau Perchta the duality of both the maiden and the crone in the same person. Before very patriarchal monotheistic religions, opposites coexisted within the same personification. For example, the goddess of death was also the goddess of birth. The goddess of life was also the goddess of destruction. It's a relatively new phenomenon in human evolution that religion splinters apart these opposites, making people believe that there's either all good or all bad. Then in Germany, we get the legend of Knecht Ruprecht. I am so sorry, I forgot to look up how to pronounce all these names before I started recording. I hope I'm not butchering them. But Knecht Ruprecht was said to be a servant and companion of St. Nicholas, a wild foundling raised from childhood. He wears a black or brown hooded robe with bells on it. He walks with a limp, he holds a staff in his hand, and he carries a bag of ashes with him. He asks children if they can pray, and if they can, he gives them goodies. Things like fruits, nuts, gingerbread. If they can't pray, he hits them with a bag of ashes, gives them lumps of coal, or gives their parents sticks with which to hit the children. This is believed to have originated in the 17th century, and the name Ruprecht, the English version being Robert, was commonly used to refer to the devil. Now, even more recently, a legend that's believed to have derived from Knecht Ruprecht is Belsnickel. Yes, Belsnickel from The Office.
Oh, judgment is nigh, for the Belsnickel ist I.
You know how they say some people were born to be bad? Well, I was born to be Belsnickel.
Oh, Belsnickel has traveled from distant lands to discover how all the boys and the girls have been behaving this last year. Oh, too much strudel.
So he's kind of like Santa, except dirty and worse.
No, much better. No one fears Santa the way they fear Belsnickel. Wow.
That's my favorite part of Christmas, the authority.
And the fear.
Yes, exactly.
Who is said to have a long tongue, wear tattered fur, and wear a mask to scare off children. He is believed to be Santa's helper. Sometimes he gives children presents, other times he beats them with his switch. Then in Italy, we have Befana, the Italian Christmas witch. So the 13th day of Christmas is January 6th. And on the eve of the 13th day of Christmas, so on the 12th day of Christmas, the witch Befana rides a broomstick through the sky and brings either gifts or coal to children. Children put stockings by the fire for her that night. And a few days before, on New Year's Eve, there's an effigy for her. A pyramidal stack of corn sheaves, brushwood, and pine are erected on a hill with an effigy of Befana set on fire on top of it. Chestnuts are roasted over the fire. If the smoke blows to the east, that's a sign that the year will be abundant. If it blows west, then the crops will be poor in the coming year. And then the embers are scattered over the agricultural fields. Then on January 6th, again the 13th day of Christmas, Befana Day, there's a carnevale with a fife and drum procession, masked balls, feasts, rituals to ensure crop abundance, sexual songs and dances, parades, pageants. And I found this incantation to Befana from the book Italian Witchcraft, the Old Religion of Southern Europe. In nome del cielo, delle stelle e della luna, mi levo questo maldocchio per ma maggior fortuna. Befana, Befana, Befana. Chi mi ha dato maldocchio, Befana, Befana, Befana. Me lo porta via e maggior fortuna. Mi venga in casa mia. Now, it's been a while since I practiced Italian, so apologies if I butchered that again. But it's basically asking for Befana's help with who placed the evil eye on them. And then moving into Finland, in the Sámi tribe of Finland. The Sámi tribe were a nomadic people that were said to drink reindeer pee after feeding the reindeer magic mushrooms, something called fly agaric. Because these types of mushrooms, they are toxic to humans, but not to reindeer. So by them passing through the reindeer, they were not toxic to humans, just hallucinogenic. So after drinking the reindeer pee, the Sámi experienced something called shamanic flight, in modern times also referred to as astral projection, when the spirit kind of flies out of your body and travels elsewhere. So the Sámi would take fly agaric in the form of reindeer pee, and they believed that their souls flew out of their tents into the sky, and then eventually they returned with the gifts of enlightened consciousness through the hole at the top of their tents, kind of like a chimney. And sometimes it's said that they wore red robes trimmed with white fur. So revisiting the legend of Santa Claus in the context of everything I just told you. Santa flies in a sleigh drawn by 12 reindeer on Christmas Eve. Like I said, Joulupukki, Thor, and Befana also travel by flying through the sky. 12 and 13 are witchy numbers. On the eve of the 12th day, Befana comes. On the 12th night, Frau Perchta comes. There are 13 Yule lads that terrorize the town. Santa Lucia is celebrated on December 13th. As for reindeer, they have associations with the Joulupukki sleigh, with the goats leading Thor's chariot in the sky, and with the Sámi shamans that drink reindeer pee. And Christmas Eve, of course, is, like I mentioned, very close to the winter solstice, which has a very deep tradition that is far older than Christianity. Now, Santa comes down the chimney hole, kind of like a tent hole, and he brings gifts, which is a Saturnalia tradition, also very similar to St. Nicholas's gifts of generosity, also to how Gryla and Befana, and pretty much all of the legends that I mentioned, bring either gifts or coals or beat children, depending on whether they're naughty or nice. Santa loves milk and cookies in a similar way to how Frau Perchta likes offerings of porridge, and how fairies like sweet foods to appease them. Elves are the one helping him prepare the presents up at the North Pole, and in Norse mythology there are something called Alfar, hidden folk, which are kind of like elves. There are stockings to be filled with goodies on the mantle, just like Gryla leaves gifts or rotten potatoes in people's shoes, just like St. Nicholas leaves goodies in shoes, just like Befana leaves things in stockings. Santa wears a red fur-trimmed robe. He has jingling bells, which is a very similar description of clothing as the Joulupukki, possibly the Sámi shamans, and also Knecht Ruprecht also wears a hooded robe with bells jingling. He has a white beard similar to the god Odin, who also traveled in a carriage in the sky, except this one was drawn by goats. And Santa is from the North Pole, which, considering the fact that a lot of these legends are from the Scandinavian region or just very snowy regions, whether it's Iceland, Germany, Finland, Siberia, all of these places evoke the quintessential image of Christmas, of beautiful, perfect snow and cold all December long. So what if the legend of Santa Claus represents a splintered off, watered down version of a much more multifaceted legend? What if he's not just a benevolent gift giver, but also a punisher? Legends such as Belsnickel, Knecht Ruprecht, Gryla, Befana hold the duality of both, but more Christianized, more recent legends like St. Lucia, St. Nicholas, and Santa Claus tend to splinter these two opposites so that they no longer belong to the same person. For example, you get Frau Perchta, who's both beautiful maiden and crone, or Befana, who can be both benevolent or cruel, compared to St. Lucia, who's only one of these, who's only beautiful maiden of light. And lastly, why would there need to be so many legends this time of year scaring children into being good? Let me know what you think about this, but you'll find that even the Santa legend is a bit fear-mongering. Just listen to the lyrics. You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. He's making a list, he's checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Is it perhaps that during the darkest night of the year, parents wanted to make sure that their children were behaving, possibly for their own safety? So maybe that's why they concocted these legends to scare their kids into being good. Again, just my theory. Let me know what yours is in the comments below. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll see you next time.